Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Sally Nugent.
Headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. Crisis talks on soaring gas prices. The government considers propping up struggling energy firms.
We've got to try and fix it as fast as we can, make sure that we have the supplies that we want, make sure that we don't allow the companies we rely on to go under. We'll have to do everything we can.
And the gas price is having a knock-on effect on food supplies. It's possible we'll see an impact on our supermarket shelves in the lead up to Christmas.
COVID vaccines for 12 to 15-year-olds are available in England and Scotland from today.
A volcano erupts on the Canary Islands. The army is called in as thousands are evacuated.
Good morning. Tributes for one of the game's greats, former England striker Jimmy Greaves, who's died. There was an applause at all of Sunday's Premier League matches in memory of the man who is still the leading goal scorer in the English top flight.
And the Emmy goes to The Crown.
The Crown wins Best Drama at the Emmys in Los Angeles. Olivia Colman is named Best Actress for her portrayal of the Queen.
Good morning from the Chelsea Flower Show. It's the first time in 108 years this show has been held in the autumn, of course, due to the pandemic. The weather today, for most of us, it's going to be dry. There'll be some sunny spells, the showers in the southeast easing, but more cloud and some patchy rain coming into the northwest later. I'll have all the details in about 10 minutes.
Good morning, it's Monday, it's the 20th of September. The top story this morning is that crisis talks between the government and energy bosses will be held later as ministers consider emergency state-backed loans to encourage firms to take on more customers.
Surging gas prices have left some energy companies battling to stay afloat, while supermarkets have warned they could also affect food supplies. The Prime Minister has said the problems are temporary. Katie Austin reports.
The price of natural gas, a key source of the energy which heats our homes and powers our industries, has soared. It's a global issue with causes including high demand. The price has gone up so much that some smaller energy suppliers have gone bust. There are fears more will follow. The regulator Ofgem says it's working to ensure consumers continue to be protected. The Business Secretary held crisis meetings with the industry at the weekend, and there will be further talks today.
Because the industry forecasts ahead, we can see that this is a peak and then we expect prices to come down in the spring. So really conversations are about how we manage a very tight autumn-winter period and the specific impacts we think that these prices will have on industry.
Another knock-on impact of energy being so expensive is that production has been halted at two large fertiliser plants in England. They make carbon dioxide as a byproduct, and that is used widely by food producers, for example in meat production and packaging. Some manufacturers and supermarkets have warned of shortages if the problem isn't urgently resolved. Iceland says it's not seeing problems yet, but the situation is a concern.
Our supply chain are building up an additional 1 to 2 weeks stock, particularly on key lines that they're worried about, such as frozen meat, just to ensure that if this CO2 crisis does last any longer than a few days or indeed weeks, we will be able to keep servicing our stores and ultimately our customers.
The government's spoken with the company which runs the fertiliser plants to discuss options around getting them going again. Food businesses say the carbon dioxide disruption couldn't have come at a worse time, with the supply chain already under pressure as they struggle to get enough workers and lorry drivers. Wholesale gas prices are unlikely to come down just yet, and eventually they could feed through into higher energy bills for households. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Well, let's talk more about this with our chief political correspondent, Adam Fleming. Morning to you, Adam. What more can you tell us?
Well, we know there's going to be a meeting today between the business department and the energy companies, and we'll have a lot more information after that meeting has taken place. But at the moment, the government is relying on the existing system for when you have a problem with energy suppliers, which is that if a smaller supplier goes bust, then its customers are transferred over to a larger energy supplier, and that's known as the supplier of last resort. The problem here is that for the bigger energy companies, that's not a very attractive prospect because the cost of supplying those customers is going to be so high. So is that where the government is going to have to step in and provide support? Or do you see them doing something else with maybe Ofgem, the energy regulator, kind of taking over a struggling energy supplier and running that for a little while, which would be legal under the law? But normally in these circumstances, the government has the dilemma between, do you spend taxpayers' money, or do you just let the market do its thing and let the companies take the strain? You can kind of get a clue to which direction the government's heading, though, when you listen to what the Prime Minister was saying about this issue when he landed in New York overnight.
We've got to try and fix it as fast as we can, make sure that we have the supplies that we want, make sure that we don't allow the companies we rely on to go under. We'll have to do everything we can, but this will get better as the market starts to sort itself out as the world economy gets back on its feet. There are all sorts of ways in which the suppression of the world economy caused by COVID is now expressing itself as problems of recovery.
To me, that sounds like a Prime Minister who's ready to intervene, certainly in the short term, but also trying to reassure people that this will not affect the supply of gas to your house, and it will be resolved eventually.
Adam, thanks very much indeed.
France has cancelled a meeting between its Armed Forces Minister and the UK's Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, which was due to be held this week. This is after a new security deal between Britain, the US and Australia led to France losing out on a major contract in the process. The Prime Minister insists relations with Paris are very friendly.
12 to 15-year-olds in England and Scotland will start receiving COVID vaccines from today.
In Wales, invitations will be sent out this week, while the programme is expected to start shortly in Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, millions of older and vulnerable people will also be contacted to arrange their booster shots. Our health correspondent Catherine Da Costa has more.
Having waited for older age groups to be vaccinated, the UK's 12 to 15-year-olds are next in line to be offered a jab. Some Scottish health boards will start administering Pfizer vaccines at drop-in clinics from today. Those still making up their minds can choose to wait for an appointment later this month.
While the risk to you of being severely ill may well be low, we want to make sure every single 12 to 15-year-old is protected, and not only protected for themselves, but also as they go into school, it helps to protect, hopefully, their teachers and others that they interact with at school too.
At some schools in England where permission forms have been sent back, NHS staff are expected to begin immunising teenagers from today, with most likely to start later this week. The decision over whether to vaccinate the over 12s has been finely balanced because young people are at very low risk from COVID. While data has shown a very small chance of teenagers suffering from heart inflammation after the Pfizer vaccine, catching COVID also increases the risk of developing myocarditis. Last week, the UK's 4 chief medical officers said 12 to 15-year-olds should be offered a jab to help protect their education and mental health.
I think it is really about recognising that not only is the vaccine helpful for young people to reduce the risk to their health and to educational disruption, but there's also contributing to trying to get through this pandemic where we still have high rates of infection in the community, and younger people taking up a vaccine will contribute to reducing those over time.
Elderly care home residents who are most at risk from the virus are being prioritised for booster shots. England and Wales have already made a start, while Scotland begins its campaign today and Northern Ireland's rollout's due later this month. Health and social care workers, the over 50s and younger adults with underlying health conditions will also be eligible 6 months after their second jab. The NHS in England and Wales will start contacting people by text or letter this week. Vaccinations will play a central role in helping the UK to navigate what some fear could be a difficult winter ahead. Catherine Da Costa, BBC News.
Folic acid is to be added to flour across the UK to reduce the risk of life-threatening spinal conditions in babies. The government said the move could prevent up to 200 birth defects every year. The new rules will only apply to non-wholemeal wheat flour, with gluten-free foods and wholemeal flour exempt.
Thousands of people have been evacuated after a volcano erupted on the island of La Palma in the Canaries.
Several homes have been destroyed and a 2-kilometre-wide exclusion zone has been set up around the lava flow. This is the volcano's first major eruption for 50 years, as Courtney Bembridge reports.
For the first time in half a century, the Cumbre Vieja volcano erupted, with fountains of molten rock shooting hundreds of metres into the sky and incandescent orange rivers flowing down the hillside. The island has been on high alert for the past week because of a huge increase in tremors, and thousands of people were told to leave their homes. The eruption started in the afternoon. Plumes of smoke could be seen from across the island, and eyewitnesses described hearing a loud explosion.
The noise coming from the volcano, it sounds like, I don't know, 20 fighter jets taking off right now, and it's extremely loud.
2 hours later, with rivers of lava edging down the hillside, soldiers were deployed to help get people out. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has arrived in La Palma after postponing his trip to New York for the United Nations General Assembly this week. Experts say it's not clear how long the eruption will last, and it's going to be an anxious wait for residents. Courtney Bembridge, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.